From Latvia to England to Mexico to the United States. The best global advice on how to improve your life, your career, and your business. Welcome. My name is Alina, and today we have a special guest, Anthony Hogan, the president of the Ivolve Now, who works in Mexico and in San Francisco. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to being interviewed by you for a little while now.
Thank you, Anthony. So, Anthony, what are the most important lessons that we should learn early in life?
Interesting question, because I have worked with a number of clients from students all the way up, and I get something along those lines all the time. In my profession, people like to call communications soft skills, and I hate that. It's like, no, they're not soft skills. Communication skills are the foundation skills of everything else. No matter what else you do in life, if you can write well and speak well, then no matter what job you do, you're going to get ahead in that particular job. And one of the elements of that people often forget about is storytelling. The ability to tell a great story will always assist you and help you in your communications. It doesn't matter if you're a comedian and you're telling a story for a monologue, if you're an author and you're writing a story, if you are a non-fiction author and you're writing about how to do public speaking, you have very specific stories. All of these stories that you have in your life can really serve you in your career. If you are doing an interview, for example, you can, someone asks you, what is your biggest weakness? Oh, my biggest weakness is public speaking. No, you don't just say that. You actually give them a story. It's actually called the STAR technique, S-T-A-R, and I call it the STAR-E technique. And basically you tell a story. You say, glad you asked that question. For me, it's Spanish. I live part-time in Mexico. My Spanish isn't that good, so it's my biggest weakness. But what I did is I went online and I found an excellent Spanish coach who could take my American accent and perfect my American accent. And then over 6 months, he assisted me. So within 6 months, I was able to do my first professional presentation in Spanish. You see? So I've told you a story. Not only do you know my weakness, but you know how I improve my weaknesses, which is really the point.
Sure.
You know. Also, if you're in a corporation, in a company, and someone says, I need you to tell me about the production of books this month. How many books did we produce, and who was the best-selling author? You can just kind of stand up and say it, or you can give them a story about we went from here, to there, to there. Because all stories have a basic same structure. It's a story arc. What's the advance? What's the retention? That's the main plot. What's the high point, the conclusion? And then, what's the high point? And then what's the conclusion? So every story has that. If you learn how to use that, how to say that, then you can put stories in different parts of your career. Interviews, inside giving presentations, many things like that. So I think storytelling is the one lost secret of an excellent tool that you can learn.
That's very true, Anthony, because when we think about stories, we think about the simple stories that we tell our children, that we watch movies, but we don't really think using stories in our personal life in interviews, for example, which is excellent. So what would be your advice on how to best capture these stories?
Good question. It's interesting because if you think about it, we need to capture these stories because they're so powerful. If you think about what is the first public speaking, it's the elder of the village telling stories to the children to help them learn something. It is the leader of the community telling stories to people about how they can make the community better. So we're actually wired for storytelling. Our brains actually take in stories and we empathize with them very well. That's why storytelling is so important. As a matter of fact, the past president of the National Speakers Association said, they asked him, what is public speaking? He said, tell a story, make a point, tell a story. So it's clearly important. So we have these stories in our lives, but do we remember them? Some people are just really talented and have these memories where they can remember everything. You know, the woman or the guy who's at the bar or at your party and he's always telling these funny stories and everybody's laughing at her stories. They have it naturally. Some of us, like me, we have to write them down to remember them. So I always work with my clients to say, create a story bank. A story bank is a simple spreadsheet, Excel file, something like that you put the stories in, piece by piece. This is the basic background setting. These are all the things that happened. This was the high point, the denouement, okay? And this was the conclusion. And here's the point of the story. And you start putting all of your stories in there. And then you can decide, if you have an interview question, which story works best. You can decide if you need to give a presentation, if you need to give a pitch to start your business, if you need to give a presentation reviewing what was done at work. You can decide which story works. And the other great thing about storytelling that I learned from Patricia Fripp, she is a coach in San Francisco that is my goal model for how to be a great coach. She says that you can tell other people's stories too. I can tell the great story about my friend Alina, who moved from Latvia to Europe to Mexico, has traveled around the world and all the stuff she did to empower women, And it's not my story, but as long as I tell it that this is the story of Alina, then it's a powerful story I can use. It doesn't have to be your story. It just has to be a powerful story. So make your story bank, invest in your story bank, and get the financial returns from your story bank.
Excellent advice, Anthony. Let's all have our own story banks and let's keep it up. Thank you for watching us tonight. Goodbye, adios, до свидания, until next time.